just a little bit about how AS is different than IGP in scoring, just so that everybody understands exactly what's happening. When we come out in AS, one of the things that we really wanted to strive for is to give points to dogs that showed what we want our German Shepherds or our Malinois or our working dogs to be. We want those attributes that we seek to be rewarded. So part of that is the overall picture of the dog and handler, the repertoire between the dog and the handler. That scores for some, or counts for some of the points that are being scored. The drive in the specific animal, the actual drive, the intensity, the overall appearance of the dog, that's part of what's being scored. And then the technique is being scored. So that when a judge is looking at a performance, he's looking at first and foremost the overall picture. So he's going to look at an overall picture on the dog and say, wow, that's a really nice routine. Like, I really like that. And he's going to put in his own head that dog and handler team into a category. Where do they belong in a category as you're looking at the performance of this team? And then he's going to go back, because he has his judge sheet, and each specific exercise is going to be judged. Right? So this is my easiest way to explain this, I think, is that if we're looking, let's say, at a sit out of motion, and we're looking for a sit out of motion for an AS1 dog, and the dog doesn't sit but stands. All right, so that sit out of motion is worth 15 points there. So the judge might look at that and say, okay, the dog stood, it didn't sit, I'm going to take 5 points right there. But then he looks at an AS1 dog's overall obedience performance and says, okay, wow, this dog is out there burning up the ground. Heads up, tails going, attitude to spare. Relationship with the handler is superior, is great. I am looking at this performance and I get to the dumbbells. Fast, intense, send out, the dog goes. Even though I have 5 or 6 or 7 points that I could take here for that sit out of motion, I'm looking at a V performance overall for an AS1 dog. Therefore, when I add these different things up, I am moving that dog up into a low V. Even though in technique, we might be losing 7 points or 6 points or 5 points. That dog is still going to V, because that dog shows the characteristics that we want. So as you go on with this, that's what we're really striving for, and that's what you're going to see. And so sometimes I think people get confused because they think IGP and they're like, well, that dog lost 7 points. There should be 7 points gone from that dog. And a judge is looking at that and saying, no, because the overall picture is so strong, is so good, is so much what we want to reward for both dogs out there showing and sport dogs and military and police dogs and just the breed in general. This is what we want to produce. So think about that as you're preparing your dog, and think about the differences in the scoring.